Welcome back.
So yes, so John, you were for the people who are trying to get into meditation or who are in the initial stage, we're trying to understand the distinction between soul and even like some people have a question, oh, does the soul exist or whatever, right? For it's probably like being spiritual means, of course, they are on their own path and it's an experiential journey. So how can you suggest or help them recognize the presence of soul in one's inside
Yeah.
one?
Or understand who I am and what is that I am that you talk about all the time. What does that mean and how do I understand that?
When I first started working with that concept, I was going into an observation mode where I would sit and I would just not think, and I would wait for a thought to come. Now the interesting part about this, as you do this, you begin to discover that thoughts are coming in from another place. If you're not thinking and you see a thought or a thought comes in and you're actively being the observer, you didn't initiate the thought. Where did the thought come from? I mean, that was kind of like my first thing, So I would.
So John, where did the thought come
So-
from?
At first, I was like, well, I'm not sure. I would get these thoughts or I would get these feelings, or is this my feeling or is this a thought from somewhere else? So I continued the practice of being the watcher, becoming the watcher of my feelings in my body. How does my body feel? Where's that, what's going on in my body and also what's going on in my mind? So in this process, I begin to discover the difference between my thought and a thought that's coming from another place. And I even began to learn the part where I was getting suggestive thoughts from other beings that were making suggestions. And what they're doing is they're making suggestions related to an energy that they want to take as you think about that and experience it. They're going to give you a thought to create an emotion in your body so they can take that energy from you as you do that.
They can take the energy from us?
They are siphoning some of that energy off of you because we're such emotional beings. We have so much energy through our emotions that they're taking a part of that energy from you as you do that, especially the lower energies. And this came from watching and knowing, hey, I wasn't thinking about that. That wasn't me. I didn't start thinking about that. That thought was shoved in there, and so that I learned that when an entity does that, I go, no, get out, and they did because they had been realized, and they would go away. That would quit. It would stop immediately. Now, some people might say, well, that's just you telling yourself that. But if you do this enough and you work with it enough, you begin to see the difference in the energy, the way it feels. Because remember, I was saying that you need to monitor your feelings, how you feel, how you think. I was working on monitoring these patterns that were coming into me so I would know or try to discover, is it me in here or what is it? So over a period of time, I was able to distinguish the difference between my thought and the thought of another person or the thought of another entity, putting that into my head, because I observed it. I was just observing. I was just being I guess I'd just be me, just continuing to focus on that. But that's an important thing because it brought clarity in my will of wanting to bring clarity into that and working on it, having a focus on it. It created that. And by just continuing to look at it.
Did it also feed through on your will? Because separation from your body must have probably enforced a lot on, like, you focusing more on what your soul needs rather than your own materialistic or your body needs. Can you elaborate on that?
In this same period that I'm doing that, I was beginning to work on blocks, blocks and restrictions and past traumas. So as I identified that this is something I need to change within me, and I would attempt to let that go or release it. At times, the body would fight me on it and escalate. It would escalate that feeling, and so I learned to stand my ground with my body. I learned to say no. I'm in control here. You're not in control. We're going to do this. I don't want this anymore. This is the way we're going to be. We're not going to be this way. We're going to be this way. This is who I am now. I'm not like this. But what happens is the body's going to, it throws its temper tantrums, and that's what everybody's experiencing. I try to remove this cycle from me. Well, that has been wired and fired into the system. So the body, it's used to, if it gets a certain emotion or an indication, it's used to firing that mechanism that creates that pain or that suffering in you. So all I did is I realized that was a function of the body, and that I had to become the infinite soul. I had to become the driver of the car.
Okay, so once you realize what you're essentially saying is your thought lost its energy, so it just dissipated automatically.
When the body finally, the body's like a horse. Have y'all heard my horse analogy?
Nope, but please
No,
explain. Please explain.
Okay, the body is like a horse that if it has been ridden a certain way for years, or has experienced certain things over and over for years, if you try to change or vary that horse's activity, it's going to buck, and it's going to fight you. So when you have to retrain your horse, you have to take your horse and run around in laps and lovingly get the message through to the horse that we're not doing that anymore, we're doing this. After the horse discovers that what you're doing now is better than what it had before, it's happy. That's been my experience with this. After I got rid of all this garbage, my ego is, or my body, or whatever you want to call it, is happy.
That's so beautiful.
So
it feels better.
Yeah.
It's loved. I infinitely love my body.
So could that, you always talk about willpower, and going back to just an example, maybe after a long day, instead of having that drink and you're trying to reprogram yourself, because you've seen that, consistently that's been, indoctrinated into you, you can consciously change your actions through meditation as well, and tell your body, I'm not going to do this. Instead, I'm going to sit here 20 more minutes and do a deeper meditation before I go out for dinner.
Yeah, you're hitting on a really big thing, because when you first start meditation, once again, it's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You just stepped on a horse that's going to buck and throw you in any way possible that it can. That's what the body's going to do. So what I did is I took the same approach that I used in martial arts or anything that I've done in my life. I'd go into meditation for 5 minutes, and I would achieve the best I could in 5 minutes. And then I went to 10 minutes. And I worked with my body on sitting still, being happy with what I'm doing. And, at first it's like, no, we're going to do this. And then I'm like, no, we're going to do this. So we say in 10 minutes, and I do that every day, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. Then I go to 15, 30, an hour.
Yeah. And also in terms of involvement, initially it started off as a check mark, from what we're saying. And it went from check mark to an enjoyment, like going back to your horse analogy.
Oh, it did. I mean, meditation.
It's very important.
Meditation now, if we talk about that, at first it was like I'm in this battle, and I'm a warrior, or I'm a warrior anyway, so I'm like, okay,
So it is.
I'll win this battle. So after I won it, or the horse was broken, the horse started loving what it was doing. And now the horse goes, meditation.
Whenever you
It's
do
time
it.
for meditation.
Yeah.
Right.
It wants that meditation every day, and it wants more of it.
So meditation is the reward.
Yeah, meditation is the reward now. It's not a punishment.
Gotcha. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so the human experience is, you can think of it in an animal way. Everything's that way because the body is an animal.
Yeah. And circling back to, you mentioned animal, and I know previously in the previous podcast we talked about soul design and the lifespan of the soul from an infant to a mature to an old soul. Can you connect the animalistic nature on each of these soul
Of your
realms?
body,
Yeah.
even maybe.
Yes. Like, what would be like an infant soul's bodily nature versus a more mature and older soul? Like, how would that transformation takes place from an animalistic nature to more of an evolved, or
Or
a
is there
soul
a
that
connection?
Well, there is. I
is
mean, if you're an infant soul and you come in, you're going to be, image an infant. I mean, if you don't get what you want, you're going to be squalling and bawling.
Yeah.
It's you know what I mean? It's more of just like this. It's just the world is just
Upside down.
it's upside down, and you just come through the birth canal and you come out, and it was the most harrowing experience you've had since the last lifetime that you did it. And for an infant soul, all of this is like can be a little harrowing for them because it's so new. They don't have the experience to back up. Like souls that have been around a long time, the experiences are more difficult, and they make a lot of mistakes. I mean, you may be born in and die at 4. Or you may be born in and die very young because you don't have the experience to stay alive.
Yeah.
So as we move to a baby soul, the baby is beginning to interact with the world to a point, and beginning to discover, and is beginning to crawl, and is beginning to move around and express. It's the beginning expression of who I am. And for a soul coming into the earth realm, it's the beginning of expression of being a human being on earth.
Yeah.
So that would be a way to put it. The youth soul is adventurous and rebellious.
We've all been there, right?
Yeah, and
We've all been there.
happy-go-lucky, control, fighting over control. See, that's where the humans have been. We're fighting over control for our domination of our space. And through the youth cycle. Mature are the older souls who are beginning to have, they have a family. They're They've been around, they've learned enough to begin to utilize karmic energy in a way that is more positive and create better situations for themselves and others. And then the old souls have been around and done just about everything, and can seem kind of like aloof, or can be wise, but seem to not care at times. Generally, they display an ability to do lots of different things. Generally, they can do a lot of different things because of all the different lifetimes. And they have a culmination of wisdom and knowing, depending on what level they are, and they can be, really the old soul age is really about teaching in the different ways through even each level. There's 7 levels, but it's teaching in nearly all those levels. So it's
Where's the aloof part come in? Just
the aloofness just comes from having seen something so much and just not really, not having an interest in being active in certain things, because it is something you've been through before and you don't resonate anymore with that type of activity. Creates an aloofness or a feeling amongst others that you don't care, or you seem to be,
Yeah, it's more like, oh, I've been there, then that, kind of like a body or your soul remembers that you've been through like lifetimes of all of these experiences, and you probably.
These are all qualities that I've heard people say about me. So I'm experienced with this. The negative, those are some of that are negative things that we try not to do.
Yeah.
But we try not to be that way. But you can seem that way. That's an old soul thing. So each one of the,
So do you remember any of your baby, youth, or mature soul lifetimes?
Oh, do I remember any of them? Well, what's different about me or any other starseed is I am a starseed. And as I came in, I was a baby to this reality in some ways, but then already a master in a different reality system, but still a lot of lifetimes and a lot of experience to rely on. And also we were counselors to the Atlantean civilization and to other civilizations. So already some experience with dealing with humans for a long time.
Oh, wow.
In this reality and other realities. So it's kind of, you have to differentiate between being a starseed and being just an earth human. That's kind of who I was talking about going
Makes
through
sense.
the soul ages.
So let's say I've gotten my soul design from you, and I've understood it now, and I've watched this podcast, so I also understand about observing and willpower, and I'm still trying to understand. Okay, but how do I connect? How do I connect? Is it time and more will? Is that what I need? Because I'm trying to live my reality. I'm trying to be observant. And then someone comes to you and asks you, like, how do I connect? What would you?
That's a good question.
What would you kind of?
Connecting is about the realization of I'm letting these things go, and I need to be the things that are in my soul design, or I need to be who I am. We've been taught that we need to be the way our parents told us to be, or the way the schools told us to be, or the religious system told us to be. And in reality, we have a unique soul design that we need to be. So we kind of have to strip away. That's what you're talking about. You have to strip away those things And then for me, I discovered I'm a love and order soul, and that my earth realm role is priest. And with that, I looked at it and I went, "Oh, that's me," But I need to realize that fully,
Gotcha.
that I be this love and this order. So I'm going along as a martial artist and owning these martial arts schools and thousands of students through martial arts. And I was actually doing that in a way through that. And so I just turned it up a notch. So let's be unconditionally loving and have order in a way that I can help other people transform into their soul mastery.
So on that regard, as you inclined yourself or drove yourself more towards your soul design profile or your divine qualities, if you will, tell me more about the shift in your experience and your joy in your life that it brought in.
The biggest shift for me was that feeling of resonance. When I first did that soul design, I mean, I knew I was a loving person, and I knew I had a high degree of being able to put systems together and stuff like that. But I saw it and I went, man, I had that resonance in my heart that this is what I am. And with that resonance, along with that, I felt a deeper love for who I am, and I began to practice that deeper love.
That's a good point.
In a way that was much more profound. Because here I am, I'm this love soul. And if that's what I am, I'm going to lean into that. So for me, it was leaning very heavily into this unconditional love for myself. And when I did that, that was a huge shift in ways. Because it gave me the courage and the will and the power to break through the remaining barriers.
Yeah, I mean, you have the whole force behind you now.
I had the whole force behind me to break through.
Right, yeah.
The barriers.
Makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
And everybody's cheering for you now because it's like you're in perfect alignment with what you are as a person or as a soul, if you will.
How did it impact your relationships? To follow up with that question. How did it impact your relationships when you started living in congruence?
When I look back at my relationships, I'd have to say there were really like 3 or 4 different phases in my life. I was a mess. If we talk about I had my dark night of the soul, and I was just a complete mess back then. And I'm sure my wife was going, well, if that SOB doesn't change here pretty quick, I'm out of here. I wouldn't have blamed her at all at that point. But I didn't. I changed. So this all goes back to that quotient of self-love. People really changed their view of me when I changed my view of myself.
It's a beautiful point.
Wow.
Yeah. I started loving myself completely as much as I could. I mean, in the beginning, I was still looking at myself and going, how did I get to this place?
Right.
But I just kept driving.
Yeah.
And I had other people in my life too. I mean, my instructor was a great man. He was a great soul. And we still talk. But he was a stern man, but he had to be for what he was doing. But he was love, and he showed me that love. He showed me his love, and he showed me his love to everyone else around him. So I was seeing that at the same time that I'm getting that love from him and I'm getting love from everyone else was in my martial arts life. Very loving group of people that, as I grew in that love, that's how I transformed really, is to have the love gave me the will and the power
So good.
to keep the movement of moving forward as I kept loving myself. And I got to a point, I'd been in martial arts for 2.5, 3 years. I got to the point that I was a higher ranking belt, in the lower belt system. But my instructor said, yeah, you're teaching now.
Wow.
So I started teaching classes. And then I had enough love. He saw that I had enough love in me to start loving everyone else. So in that aspect, I was still working on me, loving me, but I was loving everyone else around me. Yeah. So in doing that, as you can see what's happening.
Yeah. I think it also goes back to what you usually, when you do your guided meditations, you say, when you give the energies to someone, you get much of it back.
Yes.
So does it go back with the same with the love?
Yes.
Yeah.
If I'm not feeling well, or I don't feel right in a day, I'm not connected like I need to be, I start sending my body unconditional love.
That is so true.
And I just send it and send it and send it. And then when I start getting that, I start, my vibration starts going up and up and up and up. And as it goes up, I start radiating it to everything that's around me, to the earth, to everyone. And as I do that, I'm transformed.
Yeah. This is a great answer to to your previous question also, where you were asking about relationships and how you can
Yes.
make it better.
I have another question. I think it can be a topic on its own, but we talk about self-love and consciousness is rising there, but all throughout life for generations you've been taught that you need to be this way, look a certain way, behave a certain way. So with all of that programming, when I don't know how to give myself love, where do I start?
That's a good question. Right on the money.
Well, there's,
Great question, Shradha.
Yes.
I was talking, there was someone, it was in a group that said, I was doing a group meditation, and we were sending love to other people. And the person said, how do you do that? How do I send love to somebody else that's not in my family? Or that I don't know? And I almost felt like crying, it just, and I guess your question reminded me of that for some reason.
Yeah.
How do I go about this and I don't feel like I'm loved? And one place to start is to write down that I'm worthy of love. Just write it down. You don't have to believe it at first.
Affirmation.
Yeah, you don't have to believe it at first. You just, I am worthy of love. And do that every day. Do it in the morning, do it at night. Write it down and then say it. Write it down and say it. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of love. And affirmations are like the Kickstarter, to start a process within you. So as we do that, when you kickstart these energies and you stay focused on saying that, say, I am worthy of love. You don't believe it at first, but as you continue to do this, time after time, day after day, you start getting a feeling. And you get a difference in you that you won't be able to deny.